Yeah, it's time for Booger's pick of the week again. I'm not ready for it, Jack. I got the 7-inch stare. I got that 45 stare because I've spent most of my listening time this week digging through hundreds and hundreds of 7-inch singles to the point where sometimes I just hate music. Music's stupid. Bunch of garbage rock, not garage rock. Bunch of nonsense, make you little sounds and your frequencies make people dance and rock and roll good times. Yeah. But, I'm going to pull myself together here. Talk about it. All paths from record collecting nerddom eventually all lead you to being that guy. That guy. It's like you can't talk to him about any like normal records or bands. He only wants to talk about like hunting down some obscure single by like the Barbed Wire Tanglers. They recorded that single. That's the only thing they released, 1962. So I've kind of inherited my way into that by way of a really, really good bargain on this labyrinth of hundreds of 7-inch singles, mostly 90s era stuff, garage rock, surf rock, rockabilly. First, let's talk about some of that now. Surf rock and instrumental surf guitar stuff, it's like pizza now. They say there's no such thing as bad pizza. I don't know about that now. Like my grandparents, one time they fed me this expired Red Baron pizza that had like freezer burned pepperonis. That was pretty bad though. But, I think surf rock kind of lives up to the legend of there's no such thing as bad pizza. I just love it, a lot of this stuff that I got here, I'd never heard of it. I had never heard of 90% of maybe 95 or 99% of the stuff that I got in this pile of 7 inches. Like the Boss Martians, great surf band. I've never heard of them. They've released a bunch of stuff. Or Los Cougars on the excellent Planet Pimp Records. They only released a couple of things. Planet Pimp had all kind of cool stuff. But then you have like stuff like this. You look at this and you're like, yeah, this looks like something like a church youth group might have released and given out at church. Like this don't say surf rock, but old Booger spend the time to dig into it and find some good surf instrumentals on there. Then you have stuff like this where it's like, okay, this, I don't know what this is. The A side is terrible now. Like I hated it, Jack. But you put it on the B side and it's this cool, creepy surf instrumental. So it's like, it's hard to go through all these singles. You gotta kind of listen to all of it now and give it all a chance. And then like this, and I look at this cover, and it don't tell me surf. Like this is two old girls helping each other get dressed. Except they like put the pictures in reverse order. You look at this, and I think maybe this is McRae's or Dillard's, like selling a promotional clothing single. But this is two great surf bands, and this is the only thing they ever released in the 90s. And, there was a lot of good surf revival stuff in the 90s and into the 2000s. A lot of record labels have spent time hunting down all of the obscure 1960s stuff that was recorded by bands that only released one single. And eventually they're going to run out of that stuff and realize there's all kinds of great stuff from the 90s. That's still a very much analog era of recording. There's still lots of engineers around that can still get the vibe right and a lot of great bands that were inspired by those sounds. Another great discovery was Paul O and his big guitar. This is a old boy from Germany. He plays rockabilly. And these were released in the mid-90s. I think he may have one full-length album and then these couple of singles. Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Stop That Bloody Racket. So his vocal tunes on here, half of these are vocal tunes, 33 1/3, half are instrumentals. And vocal tunes are cool, have a really old school, late 50s rockabilly sound, but he uses a drum machine. It's not real obvious, but it just kind of gives it a little bit of a different spin. It sounds like something new in a way. The instrumentals are where it's at, though. He's like somewhere between Link Wray and Joe Meek, especially in Volume 2. He dedicates the songs to Captain James T. Kirk, and it shows because it has a very much kind of Joe Meek, spacey sort of sound to it. And we got Morricone's soundtrack to Bluebeard. Now, this is a good one now. It seems like every great film composer at some time or other gets bored with everything and they decide it's time to use like a hammered stringed instrument to carry their motif. I mean, Henry Mancini kind of did it with Charade. John Barry did it with the Ipcress Files. And Morricone does it with Bluebeard now. And, you know, there's a simple motif that's played on either a dulcimer or a cymbalum or something. And underneath it, you've got these really cool chord sequences and reharmonizations and things that are going on. It's just great, great classic Morricone music. The overall vibe is really suspenseful. You know, get your muscles tight when you listen to it and make you a little uncomfortable. And then the marching band comes and just kind of blows away your vibe now. And I discovered this prolific band called the Cannibals from the UK. This is their first release, their first single, and it's two covers. The A-side is Good Guys, that was, I think, originally made famous by Standells. It's that song that goes like, you know, good guys, sometimes good guys don't wear white. Minor Threat had covered it, and they covered it. It's a good cover, but really to me the B-side's where it's at. It's a really soulful, inspired rendering of Nothing Takes the Place of You, a song by Toussaint McCall. It's this organ player and soul singer from Monroe, Louisiana. And I lived in Monroe, Louisiana for a little bit. They right by a paper mill, brothers. It smells bad. You go out to eat, get out of your car in your nice clothes, and it smells like a toilet now. Y'all remember the 90s and the 2000s, the alt country movement? You know, the alternative stuff where you had bands coming out with old girls and old boys tending like they were Johnny Cash, Zombie, Demon Spawn, ascending from Hades to sing about wickedness and drunkenness and whatnot and what have you. I guess it still goes on to an extent. You know, some of that stuff's pretty cool, but a lot of it lacks credibility to old Dot Booger. Like, I could sooner believe that those old boys and old girls were Draculas or werewolves or ghost monsters or something. Like, a lot of times I'm just not buying it when people try to do the gothic country stuff. But then there's Hank Ray. Now, oh boy, Jack. Hank Ray from Germany. You know, as soon as I heard his voice, he's got this big baritone voice. It just captivates you. And, you know, the 33 1/3 single has 4 songs on it, and it kind of starts out with a somber mood, some really interesting orchestration choices with accordion and whatnot. And by the end of the single on the B-side, we get into really raucous, like juke joint, twang, doomy kind of stuff. You know, his voice has that charisma. It's almost like listening to Leonard Cohen or Johnny Cash or Bob Dylan or somebody like that. You know, you just buy into it. And he's got a band called the Raymen. They've released a lot of stuff you can find on streaming platforms. I think some of these songs might be on a Rayman compilation. But I think as a solo artist, his output's pretty limited, pretty hard to find. But if you're into alt country stuff or any of those artists I mentioned, definitely check out Hank Ray. It's good stuff now. And we got old Genesis now, with Nursery Crimes. It's got an old girl on the cover just playing croquet with some old boys and old girls' heads now. She's just ruthless about it. You know, the music is mixed bag for me. Like Peter Gabriel, I love Peter Gabriel. I'm a huge fan. His third album is one of my favorite all-time albums. And I like a lot of his vocal passages on here. And I like passages of music on here and some of the vibe. Like they use Mellotron a lot, which I really dig those parts. But then maybe about half of the album is just... I mean, it's just a bit too proggy for my ears. I just don't think it's the right time for old Dot Booger to get into Genesis. Somehow I've avoided Genesis, like throughout my music nerddom, except for when I was a little kid. Now, I was all about the Land of Confusion and Invisible Touch. And that old song, what's that one? I know you know, baby, 'cause I don't want to know. Doing it our way. Yeah, Jack. You know, I mean, they were all together doing their progressive rock things and high concept stuff. And then, you know, Peter Gabriel left and he went and started eventually getting into pop. And, you know, the other Genesis guys kind of eventually got into pop. Like, why couldn't they just be friends now? Why couldn't they just stay together and be pop? Now, look at us. We're pop. You're not going to be pop, just, you know, playing croquet with people's heads now. Maybe y'all shouldn't have been thinking about dark, wicked things like this. Maybe y'all could have just been friends for us. Now, why can't y'all be friends? James Bond's back, brothers, and he's got a license to read now. It's Music to Read James Bond by Volume 2, Jack. You know, you can be cynical and be like, oh, that's just that capitalism, you know, they just want to do anything to grab your money dollars. You know, it's just a cash grab on James Bond, just like those James Bond cookies and James Bond potato chips and James Bond toothpaste they was probably selling the kids. But I'm here to tell you, brothers, that this is good stuff now. If you remember a few weeks back, or maybe a month ago, listen to a James Bond album that was a Frito-Lay promotional thing with James Bond, and it was awesome. And this is awesome. I mean, you've got Leroy Holmes orchestra. To me, like the Leroy Holmes stuff is just as good as the John Barry soundtracks. Like Leroy Holmes is kind of doing the MGM studio or United Artists Studio house bands stuff. And you've got Perez Prado doing the James Bond theme. What's not to like about that? Now, Perez Prado, you got Count Basie on here, Ferrante and Tyker. This is just loaded, man. You need to put this on the turntable, drop the needle, get your James Bond book out. If you don't have James Bond, just grab any book. Pretend like you're reading James Bond and get down with it. Yeah. Then we've got the latest album by the Invisible Hands, The Big Minute. And boy, I love the Invisible Hands. And I love this album. It's got a great track sequence, a great variety of tunes and moods. You've got cover songs on there from Morricone, from Brain Ticket, which Brain Ticket's a band that I really need to look into more. Really interesting stuff from the late 60s, I believe. And the originals are by different band members. Like you've got your Alan Bishop songs, which I love Alan Bishop's singing and his lyrics, and Invisible Hands do great with those songs. But my favorite original song on here is by the guitarist, Sharif. It's called Blind the Eye of the Sun. It's just a really beautiful, trippy song, and great album. Check it out. You can find it on Bandcamp, and you can probably still get this album from Abduction Records or on Bandcamp. Spent the night in a cave. Now we got the pick of the week from the pile of 7 inches. Homer Henderson. 3 singles from Homer Henderson now. And woo-wee, sucker. This is hot. Now, Homer Henderson is a bit of an eccentric old boy from Texas. And the first thing that caught my ear was this single, Nightclub Cancer. So the A-side is this country song about how Homer caught a social disease at the filthy nightclubs, hanging out by the women's restrooms. And that's a good country tune, and I liked it, but what really caught my ears, brothers, is the planets. Mercury, Venus, the Earth, and Mars. These are the planets that dwell near the stars. This song has been stuck in my head all week. Will not go away. It sounds like the Butthole Surfers recorded like this folk country Zydeco tune. It's really bizarre, brothers, but it's really catchy and really awesome. So then, that got me and that sold me, and I found these other 2 singles in the pile. This one is Homer Henderson doing his one-man band thing, where he plays the drums with his feet, he plays the bass drum with one foot, and the snare with another, and plays the harmonica and the guitar and sings. He's got a rockabilly song on the A-side called Love on You. And then on the B-side, a pretty cool, edgy, sort of bluesy rock instrumental. Kind of reminds me a bit of Davy Allen and the Eras. Really good stuff. And then, Sonny Jack, you got Nightcrawler and Pig Hammer. This almost sounds like Homer Henderson one-man band doing some Melvins. Just real sludgy, doomy sort of stuff. You can't really pin this guy down, man. You look on YouTube, you find videos of him playing all kinds of stuff. And he passed away a couple of years ago. Fortunately, you can still find his stuff on Bandcamp. There's still a few 7 inches out there, and they've got some digital releases that have most of these songs that you see here, and also his famous song, Lee Harvey Was a Friend of Mine, which is another country song that is somewhat famous in, nerd lore. And that's it for the week. Say hi to y'all mama and them. Pray for old Doc Booger that he doesn't get the 7-inch stare again, and that he can make it through more albums without what's happening to me, dog. Sounds and your frequencies make people dance, having fun, rock and roll, cool.